Another take on one of the hardest woods to work with when it comes to casks. And from a different distillery than I did before. Actually, this is the first for this channel. Not entirely sure I had these lads on before I checked the thing. I don't see any videos up there. They were the first to pioneer the use of this type of cask in Ireland. So a double first today. First on the channel, first to use these casks. I mean, what more could you ask for? Let's drink some whiskey. Welcome to Whiskey and Whiskey. I'm the Whiskey Chaser Brian here in Christy's bar, Kilkenny. Hope you're keeping well. Now, a few weeks ago, we got the all too gentle, subtle nod or tip of the cap that there was a new release on the way. And shout out to John in Carryout Killarney, who got me in touch with the relevant people, and those relevant people sent down a relevant sample of the newest release. And I patiently waited for the launch night. Patiently. So I've never had this brand on the show before, and it's not because I didn't want to, it's simply because we didn't have anything on hand. And in the early days of this channel, we were working with what both I and the bar had to try and get some content out there and get some stuff uploaded on the channel. Anyway, here we are. The newest release from GLENDALOUGH Distillery. This is their 7-year-old single malt Irish whiskey, finished in, drumroll please, Mizunara casks, the first in the country to do it. I know I have had Mizunara cask finished blended whiskey, blended, important, on the show before, but these folks here are the originators. First ones on the scene. Now, this is not the first time that GLENDALOUGH has had a whiskey finished in Mizunara. The first was a hugely popular 13-year-old single malt, small batch, since sold out. I'm looking for some on the channel. Comment down below if you know where I can get a bottle. And the second limited edition was a 17-year-old version of the 13-year-old, which was limited to 6,000 bottles. And it's still available for a healthy price tag of about 250 euros-ish. GLENDALOUGH Distillery itself was set up in 2011 and was among one of the first craft distilleries set up in Ireland, located about an hour south of Dublin City in the heart of Wicklow County, situated in a valley within the mountains of Wicklow. The name GLENDALOUGH is Gaelic for Glen of the Two Lakes. You've been schooled. Now, GLENDALOUGH is also home to a 6th century monastic settlement founded by Saint Kevin, a monk whose statue features on the labeling here. To date, they have a number of gins they produce, a poitín, and a selection of Irish whiskies that has been sourced, as they only really began distilling around 2016. Caveat to that in a second. So while their spirit matures and becomes ready, they have obviously had to outsource some of their spirit. They do have a number of core range whiskies, as well as limited bottling runs of older age statements like the 13 and 17 and some specialty cask finishes. Now, the caveat to that is that they were commissioning their stills in 2019. So I'm a little confused. Are they distilling or are they not? Because I read something yesterday that they are still trying to commission the stills. So I was under the impression that they were distilling. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Some information that has turned up in recent days has confused me a little bit, so I'm not entirely sure what the scenario or story is behind that. Hook the chaser up. Let me know in the comment section below what the hell is going on. The casks used in this release were hand-picked by Kevin Keenan, who is one of the founders. He took a little trip out to Hokkaido, Japan. I hope I said that right, Hokkaido, sounds right, which is up in the very north of Japan. And he went up against some of the biggest distilleries in the world to bid on some of these Mizunara casks, as they only really go up for bidding once a year. They're very limited. So you can imagine how difficult it is to acquire a few of these. Not to mention it takes 200 years for these trees that are used in the cask to grow to maturity. And when chopped down, it's incredibly difficult seemingly to work with. Most oak trees, when fallen for casks, yield roughly 5 to 7 casks when they're manufactured. The Mizunara trees yield 1, roughly. Now, a little bit more about the trees. They're incredibly scarce, they're incredibly hard and brittle wood. It leaks like crazy. It takes 3 years for them to actually dry out properly to be able to use for a cask. And this is the definition of a labor of love. I was lucky enough to be invited to the online launch of the whiskey, and Rowdy Rooney, who is their head distiller, shared a picture of a casks they were pressure testing, and it was incredible to see the leaks and the bubbles coming out through the wood. It blew my mind to see something like that, because typically casks shouldn't really leak. The huge upside to all this is that Mizunara oak is incredibly porous and has a huge impact and interaction between the cask and the spirit. So a lot of wood influence here, as you could imagine. The spirit that they're using here is itself sourced. I can't say from where, as I wasn't told, but it was distilled to GLENDALOUGH's own spec and is a triple distilled single malt. There's a huge emphasis put here on the spirit, and it is 100% malted barley. So this release encapsulates the best spirit in the world, along with the best wood in the world. And that's official wording from GLENDALOUGH. This is a big enough release also, which used about 20 casks of Mizunara, a quarter of those being reused that previously stored some of their 13 and 17-year-old Mizunara offerings. The finishing times here vary between 3 months to a year in this giant vatting of single malt. So we're looking at 46% ABV, triple distilled single malt, finished for a period in Mizunara casks. This is batch 1, and I have no idea how many bottles are in this release, but I expect it to be a lot, as up to 20 casks were used for this vatting. I suppose there's an interesting point here about this red thread that you see on top. This is the red thread of fate, signifying anything that's destined to be together is connected by this invisible red thread, which is visible here. So think the world's best barley meets the world's best oak. That's what that signifies. And of course, as always, before we taste this, if you haven't already, make sure that you are liked, subscribed, you share it if you like the video. There's lots more great content on the way. I just need to get the finger out. I'm working on it. All right, onto the whiskey. Once again, 46% ABV. I'm gonna let this sit a little bit longer in the glass just to open it up, let it breathe a bit. And at release, this is priced at €85. So make your own minds up about the value there. Like I said, I had this sitting for a couple of minutes there. A little bit of breathability going on. Let's get it on the nose and I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, so firstly, very fresh. I'm getting the barley forward. I'm guessing that was kind of the spec that they wanted to bring forward throughout. The barley is making its presence known. There's lots of real vibrant woody notes. I would say think a type of sandalwood, or there was another type of wood that I was thinking the other day when I was sampling this. A vibrant kind of wood shavings nose, almost sawdust nose, that real crispy freshness, that kind of bright kind of notes to it. Now, there is some youth there, that is obvious. There's a little bit of an alcohol hit. It's not totally in your face, the alcohol, but the youth is apparent. So barley, wood, crispy freshness, a little bit of youth. I could see people being into that type of thing. All right, let's get it on the palate. Sláinte. Okay, malty, dark chocolate note there. Hints of kind of roasted nuts. And there's lots of zest and bitterness. And some clove. A little bit of sweet vanilla notes too. On the outskirts of the tongue and the palate. Another little sip, Sláinte. Yeah, malty notes apparent. Not so much a dark chocolate now, but definitely that sweetness from the vanilla, roasted nuts, zest, bitterness. Actually, yeah, clove. So the bitterness is coming through a lot on kind of the end of the palate, the end of the tasting palate, and then into the finish. And it's kind of combining a little bit with that, you know, the spiciness from the single malt. The spiciness is way more apparent on the finish than it is on the nose or even on the palate. It's very woody, it's very fresh. You know, you get those malt notes, a little bit of youth there. Again, it's translating into the palate and the finish. So what do I think? I think, ooh, one more sip. So overall, I'm gonna say this is a very interesting release. Great nose of wood and malt and kind of that spry freshness. However, I do find the bitterness on the finish not really to my taste. I'm not mad about that kind of zesty dark chocolate bitterness on a finish. But again, that's just my preference. Some of you might like that. I will say it does warrant trying. It is a great example on the nose of a fresh, crisp whiskey, malted notes forward. So if you yourself have tried it, let me know in the comment section below what you thought of it. Did you like it? If you liked it. Huge thank you to GLENDALOUGH actually for sending me on a wee sample of this and for the invite to the launch event a few weeks back. This is the bar's bottle here. Obviously you can see it's opened for you guys, so you have no reason to not pop in and give it a try. Like I said, it does warrant a try. But for me, the finish kind of following on now, I still have a little bit of those woody notes in the palate. So as always, a shout out to the lads here in Christie's for the sample and the usual antics of setting up the videos, etc. Always greatly appreciated. All right, so that's it for me on another Not a Review video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Until the next video, we will chat soon. Sláinte.